I'll be the nerd. You get to be the cool guy.
That's going to be tough. I'm never the cool guy. Matt talked about the main elements of delay, mix or the level of the effect, feedback, and the tempo of the delay, right? And your most basic delay pedal will have these three things. They might be called different things, but they'll mean the same. So in my HX effects, I have a tap tempo delay, and I could be playing in a band and pick up the tempo, the groove of the song, and hit my foot a couple times to the beat and create a delay. And for example, I do this with Kansas all the time because we don't work with a click. Everything is raw and there's no metronome. So I always have to adjust to the drummer, and there are certain songs where I really have to lock in the delay with the beat of the song. I'll give you an example of a David Bowie song, which quarter note is right around here. I don't know what exact metronome marking that is, but and if you listen to the guitar part, the delay is bouncing back at the eighth note. So you're hitting a note and it's bouncing back not at the quarter note, but at the eighth note. Da ga da ga da ga da ga da ga da ga. So I'm going to tap my foot to the eighth note of that song. So here's basically what the guitar is playing in that song. And then when you add the delay, it sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. Let's dance. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Let's sway to the song that's playing on the radio. So, some purists might call it cheating, but that is a different sound than if you were playing it this way. Letting the delay kind of bounce around and guide the groove. It's just a different kind of vibe, and it fills in the space in the sound. And guys like The Edge from U2 made that famous. He uses that in every song that they play almost. It's a really great tool. And Eddie Van Halen was another guy that used delay to really beef up his sound and fill that space, because they didn't have a keyboard. And you could play some cool single lines that become iconic to the song. And if you choose the right delay settings, it really gives it a magical kind of larger than life sound.
And you and I both, guitar players are kind of our biggest influences in a lot of ways. I know you hung out with a lot of violinists growing up. I didn't. But they have always done some really, really cool and forward-thinking things with delay. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my ideas, and I know you have too. The thing about a guitar is that they've got that really percussive pick sound that when it hits, those delays really pick that up in a big way. And that's, with the chopping and all the kind of stuff that you do, you can utilize that with the violin too, right?
Absolutely. The bow is like a pick. It's a very powerful rhythmic instrument. And, this is kind of my travel rig. And when I'm playing with a band, when I was doing a lot of weddings or sitting in, I could just pick up the tempo of whatever they're playing and incorporate delay into my comping or into my solos. And I have kind of the universal delay setting that's kind of a one size fits all, where I have, here, I'll show you. I have the mix at around 45%. So it's a roll off. It's a little bit quieter than the actual sound. The feedback is not too long, not too short. I got it right in this sweet spot where it can kind of fit into any song. And then I have settings saved for more specific songs that I like to perform. So if you could see here, I have the feedback at 40% and the mix at 44%. So if I'm playing a solo, if I'm just playing some notes, if you had distortion, it's just a nice fat sound. Now I started out I played guitar since I was 15. So when you play guitar, you inevitably plug in to effects pedals and discover distortion and delay and all these beautiful sounds and wah wah. That was my introduction to it. And I didn't try using those on the violin till I was in college. But I had already been kind of familiar with those sounds. I think a lot of string players who start out playing both string instruments and never play guitar, it's a real kind of scary new world for them. And I always kind of took that for granted because I'd been also a guitar player since age 15, living in kind of a parallel world playing rock and roll. And at the same time, studying classical violin repertoire. So I always kind of was drawn to exploring these sounds. I always found them fascinating. I found them like a real great tool for expression and for composition. And delay is actually a really good practice tool to improve your technique, for sure. So here's one example where you have a very long feedback. And I credit Chuck Bontrager with this. I saw him perform this at Mark Wood Rock Orchestra Camp in 2011. And I kind of borrowed it, if you will, and used it in my solo set. He takes the Telemann canonic sonatas and uses delay and plays by himself, plays a canon by himself. Okay, so there, the feedback is very slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So it's in 3, 2, 4, 5, 6. So you imagine the tempo and you set the delay where you want the note to echo. And you want to set the feedback so it rolls off before the next bar comes in, so it doesn't clash with the harmonies you're playing. So here's a little excerpt. So there you go.
You find out real fast how good your internal metronome is, right?
You find out how good your metronome is, how good your articulation is, how good your intonation is. You know, teachers always tell you to record yourself. There you go. You're recording yourself and facing your musical and technical demons head on, for better or worse. So I always, it's also fun. It's just a lot of fun to do that stuff. So I've seen students improve tremendously their technique just by doing these kind of exercises, trying to tackle a piece like that using a delay pedal as a solo violin, viola, or cello player. So
I'd made a post, I don't know, a week or so ago, kind of poking the bear and saying, you know, reverb and delay are the same thing. Fight me, right? And right. Somebody, they go, reverb hides my mistakes and delay repeats them.
Yes, that is so true. Yes. Truth be told, absolutely. Reverb can kind of make you believe you're better than you are, inflate your ego, and delay shrinks your ego. And so do loop pedals too, because you're really hearing any mistake you make, just blaring back in your ear over and over and over again. So it really incentivizes you to get better. You know?
Well, a delay is delay and looping are really kind of the same thing. Like we can argue reverb and delay because they're natural phenomena that have to do with sound bouncing around. But delay and looping are also kind of the same thing and kind of not too, right?
Kind of. If you do a really long feedback, here's a little analog more delay pedal that I have on my big pedal board. And it's not programmable. You have to turn the knob and adjust it manually, but the sound is really warm. I like it for different reasons. So if I turn the feedback all the way up, here's what it'll sound like. So the thing with analog delay pedals, the sound changes as it echoes back. If I spent time tweaking it, I could get that delay to last forever. And actually, that pedal I use in a song called "Chasing the Dragon" to represent the dragon. I recorded myself just twisting it around to get this really crazy, trippy sound. The next Stratospheerius album, it's the closing song. So,
ooh, we got a little preview there.
That's right. So we're talking about that post you did with reverb versus delay. I responded. I said, you can't do this with a reverb pedal. And I sent a video of one of my favorite guitar solos of all time, Flight of the Wounded Bumblebee by Nuno Betancourt, great Portuguese guitarist from the band Extreme. And I've adapted it for violin, and I've performed it a bunch. And the trick to it is you take the triplet of a song. So let's say the tempo is 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you find the triplet. Da 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 da. And if you set the mix at 50% or maybe 52%, you'll get this kind of perpetual motion sound, but you're only playing half the notes. And myself, I like to mix it with whammy pedal and a few other things, so it sounds like this. So if you want to play them that video that I sent you, he kills it. I don't want to compete with that, but it's a cool example of that kind of bumblebee. I call it the bumblebee effect. So that's yet another thing. That's the total opposite of the Telemann, where you're doing a really fast delay and creating a cool sound from it. And what I always encourage people to do is try to write a piece of music incorporating that kind of sound. Because frankly, like that song, Fly the Bumblebee, Wounded Bumblebee, wouldn't work without that effect, right? You just wouldn't be able to perform it. Yeah, I think like people mistake these things as gimmicks. For me, they're just expressive tools. They're just as important as your bow or playing pizzicato or playing, soltasto or anything. It's just an extension of your palette of sonic colors that you can paint with as an artist,
Well, the third movement of your concerto starts with the dotted eighth delay thing. And I can testify, it is, as a person who's worked with a lot of delay, it is really disorienting to do that the first time. You're like, whoa,
takes getting used to.
I've got to stop listening to what's happening, and I just got to focus on what I'm doing and let the delay do its thing. At first, it's really disorienting.
Yeah, and you're a brave soul to attempt to play it and learn it so well. I was blown away, that movement is my tribute to that, to kind of that era and that sound. And, I wanted to incorporate that somewhere in the concerto.
The part that people talk about. All the other stuff, and once you figure out how to do it, it's not technically that hard. You just have to get your timing right. Of all the other things that are way harder to play, that's the part that people talk about. You're like, I can't win.
That's funny. It's the good thing is it's easy to practice slower. You just set the delay at a slower tempo and just practice slow and very meticulously and work your way up. And it's really hard to practice that without the delay because you're so used to hearing that played back. So you really want to hear the full sound. I don't know. Did you practice it without the delay or did you?
Yeah, I practiced it 9 ways to Sunday. It took me forever to get the particular sound that I wanted. Because it also, the dotted eighth also catches the attack of the bow. And that attack of the bow is really important. And I was really particular about exactly what attack sound I wanted. And then you've got to play the instrument like without the delay. It's more forgiving, I think, on which attack sound you use, and with the delay, because it's coming back more than one time, like you have to be more particular about it.
It makes you hyper aware of those kinds of things. Like, how do you articulate a note? How do you attack a note? How do you release a note? Because you know how you get used to how it's going to sound played back to you. Cathedral by Van Halen is a very famous delay song. And I know I sent you a link to that. I haven't played it in a while, so if I play it right now, I'm going to mess it up. It's the wrong key, but it kind of sounds like that. I'm sure you'll probably cut to the real video at this point. Yeah, that's a really good kind of beginner one to try to learn. These pieces are like etudes. They're like standard rep. They're things that are, there's a good progression of pieces I recommend to students that'll get them going on this stuff if they don't know where to begin. Cathedral is great. It's a very steady tempo. You're playing the notes kind of marcato or martelé. You're playing them short. You're hearing the delay played back. It's a steady tempo. It's pretty easy to play. There's not a lot of shifting and things like that. So I would try to find a transcription of it and check it out. Now, here's a much crazier one that I learned. Because I played guitar all these years, I worshiped guys like Eddie Van Halen and Steve Vai and all these guys and Nuno Bettencourt, and they had these cool solo pieces. Guitarists are way ahead of us as far as how they use effects and how they create clever pieces from them, in my opinion. So Steve Vai, one of my favorite guitarists of all time, used something called a pitch delay. So a pitch delay echoes your sound at a different pitch of your choosing. It could be a major second, an octave, a minor seventh, whatever you want it to be. And you choose the rhythm of it, how loud you want it to play back, et cetera, et cetera. So he wrote this piece called Ballerina 1224, where he set the pitch delay to echo back a major sixth above your tone. Kids, don't try this at home. Okay. Hold on. Here's the clean overdub. It's been a while.
That's amazing. I remember seeing you do that at Mark's camp, and the whole room just went nuts.
I like to torture myself. See, what kind of crazy thing can I pull off next?
Well, it's working for you.
That's just the tip of the iceberg with delay. It's probably my favorite effect, because there's so many different things. And I could cite, like, Martha Mook is really cool with writing compositions based on ping pong delays and 2 delays or 3 delays happening at once. And Eventide has a lot of interesting pedals that kind of, you'll play a note and 5 other notes come out. And it's kind of randomized, and you let that guide what you're going to create, and I would say, talk to her about some of the stuff she does, because she has her own approach to it. And
yeah, she's actually going to be a guest on this, and we're going to talk. It'll be sort of talking about more complex delays and the multi-taps and all the other stuff that she does. It'll be sort of its own separate week with her.
Cool.
Awesome. One thing I did want to get you to talk about a little bit was how you, like, when you hear the violin by itself, there's a certain amount of delay on that, right? But when you're playing in an ensemble, a lot of that delay sort of gets swallowed up in the ensemble. Like, it doesn't stick out as much. So, you've got a lot of practice doing this. How do you sort of set your delays as you're practicing at home and go, oh, that sounds like too much now, but it'll probably be right when I play with the band?
Thank you for saying that. So I've learned that if you're playing solo, preparing something you're going to play later with the band, and if you have the delay set pretty high, when it's absorbed with the whole band, it's going to sound more tucked in. You learn that from experience. But sometimes it's too much, so you adjust as you go. When you get to sound check and you realize that's a little over the top, I'm going to scale back the volume a little bit. It depends what kind of song it is too, and what kind of what your goal is with the delay you're using. If you want it to just beef up a solo that you're going to play, or a line that you're going to play, you don't need to set it so high. If you want it to really be tight with the rhythm and reinforce the rhythm of the song, then you want it really crisp and even with your clean sound.
Like, you and I are both Helix guys. There are so many different delays in the Helix. It would almost be worth buying an HX Effects just for the delays that are in it.
Absolutely. I don't have a Helix yet. I will. I just actually don't have any. With Kansas, my setup is a lot simpler, because I don't use that many effects with them. But with Stratospheerius, I use individual pedals. But Helix would be a great thing to have. But the HX is like a miniature version of that. And if you're going to start somewhere, just get something like that and explore all the different delays that you can, all the settings. They have analog delays, digital delays, programmable tap tempo delays, and all kinds of things like that. Ping pong delays, phaser delays, things like that. And just see what you like and see where you can use it, and just spend a lot of time messing around,
One of the cool things about it is the tap tempo feature. It used to be like on the old Boss start boxes, you had to tap whatever tempo you wanted it to be. On the Helix, you can go, well, I want the dotted eighth delay, but I don't have to tap the dotted eighth. I can just tap a quarter, and it's going to give me the dotted eighth or the triplet half notes or whatever sync that I want. You don't have to just tap that frequency or that. You don't have to tap that tempo in. You can tap a reference tempo, and it will do the math for you off of that.
Exactly. Yeah, you could tap a quarter note, and it'll give you the dotted eighth or the 16th or whatever, if you set it that way. The other thing about it, for example, if you're playing a show and everything's to a click, you know exactly what tempo each song is going to be. Nothing's going to change. You could program every song with its own delay setting, and it's there to stay. And then you can have stomp box mode or a scene in the Helix where for live spontaneous situations where you can change the delay in real time and tap it for whatever song you're playing. You could have the best of both worlds,
Yeah, I love that feature about it. And then if you're hooking up if you are running with a click and it's on Ableton, you can hook it up to Ableton, and Ableton can fire all of your tempo changes and you don't have to do it.
True. Yeah, I haven't had to do that yet, but I know you're more experienced with Ableton and actually with my concerto, that's kind of what you did. The most common question I find is, what should I get? Where should I begin? What should I buy? And we're recommending the Helix because we like it, but different people like different things. It's a personal choice. There's a million great delay pedals out there. If you go on sweetwater.com or you go to a Guitar Center and just try stuff out, you might find you prefer Eventide pedals or Boss reverb delays, or Fractal. There's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, the Quad Cortex has them, Fractal, Kemper, all those. And then, of course, the Boss multi-effects, the ME90 has got some different delays in there. Any of the Zoom A1X, which has kind of got some violin presets in it, it's got a bunch of delays in there. A lot of pedals do.
My first pedal ever was an old Boss ME6 multi-effects processor. I got it in 1990, I think, or 91. And I used it on guitar and it lasted me a bunch of years.
Yeah, it's got. We tell people with instruments and bows and effects pedals and amps, like the wand chooses the wizard. Just try a bunch of stuff. One of those things is going to speak to you more than the other ones do.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Try to challenge yourself and create. Sometimes it's fun to let the effect inspire you and guide you into a certain headspace, both to write some cool music or to improvise. Spend some time with it and don't get frustrated too fast. I think all of the stuff requires patience. It's kind of like learning an instrument. Each effect, to really use it well, is kind of like learning an instrument. And also try to find a situation where you can go on a gig and make mistakes and try stuff out.
Pretty much everybody watching this should know who you are and where to find your music, but where should people go to find your music?
Well, the central hub is joedeviolin.com. That's my website. And you can link to all my social media and YouTube from there. And Stratospheerius is stratosband.com. You can link to all our socials on there as well.
Yeah, and then you're with this little band from, it's named after, it's like Wyoming or Nevada. What's the name of the band you're with?
It's an up-and-coming band called Kansas. Just starting out.
Couple of hacks.
Yeah, we're learning the ropes. So yeah, Kansas is we're doing our 50th, their 50th, my first year with them, 50th anniversary tour all over the country. It's in its second leg and it's going to have a third leg, and it's going into December of this year. And go on kansasband.com for all the tour dates. They're constantly being added. So
yeah, I saw you guys when you were in Durham, and it's mind-blowing. That band is insanely good.
Thank you. It's such a thrill to play with those guys, and the music is so much fun. Never gets boring. It always kicks your butt. And yeah, it's amazing music and such a great legacy. And you really can't think about rock violin without talking about Kansas. They kind of laid the groundwork for anybody playing violin in a rock and roll band will forever be compared to Kansas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure as well. And thanks for what you're doing.